Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Newsround with me, Lewis, where you can learn English with the news. And in this week's episode, we're going to discuss and analyze 5 different interesting news articles that I've come across this week. First, we're going to speak about Thanksgiving. Then we're going to go into a little bit of an article about how music can calm animals down. Following that, we will discuss nuclear energy in the United Kingdom. Next, we're going to have a look at bus disruption in Machu Picchu in Peru. Before finally, we're going to have a look at COP30. This international climate summit that took place just last week. So, without further ado, let's get the ball rolling. First things first, Thanksgiving. And this is something that a lot of people will get confused because they assume that in the United Kingdom we also celebrate Thanksgiving. But no, that is not the case. Thanksgiving is strictly North American. It's something that is celebrated in the United States and Canada. And yeah, it seems a lot like a Christmas dinner with a big turkey. But let's learn a little bit more about it because the first article is a bit of a review or study into what Thanksgiving is, what the origins are, and how it is celebrated. And if you've ever celebrated Thanksgiving, let me know in the comments. Now, let me read this article. All about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a national US holiday celebrated annually on the 4th Thursday of November, centered on expressing gratitude. Its origins are commonly traced back to the autumn of 1621 in Plymouth, Massachusetts. This famous event was a 3-day harvest feast shared by the Pilgrims, who were English colonists, and members of the Wampanoag tribe, whose assistance was crucial for the settlers' survival. Although this event established a precedent for communal thanks, it did not immediately become an annual tradition. The holiday's establishment as a persistent national observance was largely the result of decades-long campaign by writer Sarah Josepha Hale. It was officially declared a national holiday in 1863 by President Abraham Lincoln, who sought to unite the nation during the Civil War. Modern celebrations revolve around gathering family and friends for a massive feast. The traditional menu features roast turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie. Beyond the meal, the day is often marked by viewing the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City and watching American football games. The spirit of the day emphasizes gratitude, family togetherness, and charity. So there we have it. That is a little bit of a summary of Thanksgiving in the United States, and I believe it is also celebrated in Canada too. But let me just review some of these advanced words and phrases. And we have a phrasal verb here. Its origins are commonly traced back, meaning that you can research through history and find the origins. So it is traced back to the autumn of 1621. That's where it comes from. Then here it says that the feast is shared by pilgrims. And pilgrims are people who will travel and walk in a certain direction, often for religious reasons. If we think in the north of Spain, you have El Camino de Santiago, which I believe in English is St. James's Way. And it is a pilgrimage where pilgrims will travel from all over Europe to reach Santiago de Compostela in Galicia. Then after that, we had crucial, which is a nice synonym for vital or hugely important. And what other advanced words do we have? After Abraham Lincoln, we have sought, who sought to unite the nation. And sought is an irregular verb. It comes from seek. If you seek to do something, it means that you aim to do something. You try to do something. And other than that, I think the rest is pretty clear. We have a family gathering, which is like a family get together or family meeting, and it emphasizes togetherness, which is the noun of being together. So that is Thanksgiving and our first article in this week's news round. From there, let's move on to, music and animals, because look at this little cute puppy. Aw, he looks adorable, doesn't he? Or it might be a she, I'm not sure. But you can see the headphones around this little dog's neck. And the article is all about how music can help to calm animals down. So let's get into it and read what the article has to say. The title is Does Music Make Animals Calmer? Let's read it. Research suggests that music can significantly reduce stress and anxiety in many animal species, but the effectiveness depends heavily on the type of sound played. Unlike humans, animals often respond best to species-specific frequencies and rhythms that mimic their own natural communication. For dogs, studies show that certain classical music pieces can lower cortisol levels and increase time spent resting, while heavy metal tends to increase nervousness. Cats, with their different vocalizations, often prefer music with tempos and pitches similar to their purring or suckling sounds. For animals in captive environments like zoos or shelters, music acts as a crucial enrichment tool that helps mask jarring background noises and encourages calmer, more natural behavior. However, scientists caution against anthropomorphic bias, emphasizing that owners should focus on objective metrics like heart rate variability and behavioral changes rather than assuming an animal enjoys the same music as a human. The goal is to use sound as a therapeutic aid tailored to the animal's unique acoustic structure and sensory system. Interesting, right? Now, related to that, do you have any pets? If so, let me know in the comments and tell me if your pet likes music. If when you put on a song, then your dog or cat might calm down, and that might prove the point of this article. I know that around fireworks, bonfire night in the United Kingdom, when you have fireworks on, dogs can get a little bit stressed and start panicking. And, it's intimidating for them. It's a little bit scary for them. So I don't know if you've had a similar experience and put on some music to calm your animal down, but I'd be curious to find out if so. So that's about music and how it makes animals calmer. But let me just go into a few advanced words and phrases. First, pronunciation. Remember, the pronunciation is anxiety. Anxiety. Music can significantly reduce stress and anxiety. After that, we have to mimic. It can mimic their own natural communication. Mimic means like to copy, basically. Then, other than that, let's move on to cats. They purr. Purr. This is the sound that they make when usually they are happy. They go, purr, purr. or something similar. And the other one is suckling sounds. This is like when you are sucking something or eating something. Then from there, we have another adjective. We have at the bottom of the second paragraph, help mask jarring background noises. If you describe a noise as jarring, it's essentially loud or painful. Loud, painful, annoying. It is a jarring noise. You're not gonna enjoy hearing this noise, but maybe heavy metal could be classed as a jarring sound. Then anthropomorphic, I have no idea. I'm gonna have to look that up myself. But other than that, I believe everything is pretty clear. We've got another adjective at the bottom here, tailored. If something is tailored to you, it is customized or adapted to you. Like a tailor, the person who makes a suit, they will tailor the fabric to fit you, to be your size. So that is the second article. I reckon now it's probably time to move on to the next one, the third article. And I mentioned it in the introduction that, as you can see in this image, here we have a nuclear power plant, like on The Simpsons. And it's about how expensive it is in the United Kingdom to maintain and produce nuclear energy, which is a relatively clean form of energy, which we may depend on more in the future if our demand for energy and electricity keeps going up and up and up. But let's read it to find out more. The title, which I shortened, was The UK, the World's Most Expensive Place to Develop Nuclear Power. Let's read it. The UK faces a crisis in its energy sector, being labelled the most expensive place globally to develop new nuclear power, jeopardizing its strategy to boost its energy generation portfolio. Key factors driving the exorbitant costs are regulatory hurdles, inconsistent government policy, and reliance on one-off large projects, which lead to significant projected overruns. Critics argue that the UK's approach, which involves decommissioning costs being fully borne by the state, discourages the private investment needed to scale up. Experts suggest a shift toward smaller, standardized projects, like small modular reactors, SMRs, which can deliver power in the gigawatt capacity more efficiently. The government is under pressure to streamline the planning and funding processes to meet its net zero goals. This high-cost environment not only threatens domestic energy security, but also makes it difficult for the UK to attract foreign capital necessary to compete in the clean energy transition. Okay, quite a complicated article, if I do say so myself, all about nuclear energy. And before I explain some of these words and phrases, tell me, what do you think about nuclear energy? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think it is clean energy? Because it can be quite a controversial topic for many people. A lot of people, understandably, don't want to live next to a nuclear power plant. Personally, I wouldn't want it either. Just because it looks a bit ugly, maybe you worry that it might release some toxic gas. And then you always have the eternal debate of what do you do with nuclear waste? Because it's not going to be biodegradable. It's not just going to disappear. But I do think that maybe nuclear power, nuclear energy, is more sustainable than using fossil fuels. So if we're faced between two bad options, what do you go for? It's like you're stuck against, I don't know, you're between a rock and a hard place, meaning you're between two tricky alternatives, between a rock and a hard place. But let me just go over some of these words. So here we have jeopardizing. To jeopardize is like to ruin or to add problems, to make something worse intentionally. So here it's facing a crisis, which is jeopardizing, harming, ruining its strategy to boost its energy generation portfolio. Then after that, we have exorbitant costs. These are very expensive costs, very high costs. And here we have hurdles. A hurdle is an obstacle. If you are running, you have to jump over a hurdle. Then we have significant projected overruns. If something runs over, you have an overrun, which is like a delay or an excess. Then what else? Scale up, phrasal verb. If you scale up production, you increase it. You increase the amount of production you have. Here, private investment needs to scale up. It needs to increase. And what else could we review? Streamline. If you streamline something, it means that you make it faster, simpler, easier, and usually more efficient. So here in this case, streamline the planning and funding process is to make it easier, make it faster, and make it more efficient. So I think that's enough about nuclear power for now. And how about we speak about one of the wonders of the world? It is Machu Picchu, which is, I believe, one of the wonders of the world and one of the places that everybody has on their bucket list, because this is an ancient civilization that was built thousands of years ago before Europeans discovered America. And it's definitely somewhere that I would love to visit at some point in the future. If you've been to Machu Picchu, let me know. And if we have any Peruvians here, tell me in the comments. Would you recommend visiting Machu Picchu or not? Because the article is all about bus disruption around Machu Picchu. That perhaps it's a bit exploited, or maybe there are too many people who are visiting this place because it must be quite fragile. But hey, let me read it and then we can discuss it a little bit further. Machu Picchu, Peru's premier tourist destination, is experiencing significant disruption due to a deepening dispute over the control of the shuttle bus service that transports visitors from the town of Aguascalientes up to the ancient Inca citadel. The controversy recently left around 1,400 tourists stranded and required authorities to dispatch emergency evacuation trains. The conflict began when the 30-year concession held by the operator, Concetur, expired in September, and a rival company, San Antonio de Torontoy, was awarded the new license. This decision ignited a fierce backlash from local tourism groups and community members who allege the bidding process lacked transparency and simply exchanged one exclusive operator for another. Aguascalientes is a remote town accessible almost exclusively by train, making the bus route, or the difficult 2-hour uphill hike, the only way to reach the site. Protesters responded to the licensing dispute by blocking the railway tracks, cutting off the vital transit point to Cusco, and stranding hundreds of international visitors. The unrest highlights a deeper tension concerning the uneven distribution of tourism revenue and the need for greater local management expertise, raising warnings about the site's long-term credibility as a world wonder. So it sounds like some people are benefiting from this world wonder. It sounds like there has been a bit of unrest, a bit of a backlash to this decision to change the bus operator. And ultimately, I think too many tourists is a problem. I don't know about you, but personally, I don't like going to really, really packed places on holiday. I don't like being in crowded areas where everybody's taking selfies and photos and you've got big queues of people. Ugh, it's a bit stressful, if you ask me. But let's just go over some of the words and phrases. So, at the beginning, we had stranded. 1,400 tourists were stranded. If you are stranded, it means that you are not lost, but you're like trapped. You cannot get back to where you were. There is no way of returning or going somewhere else. It's essentially like you're trapped. So people were trapped in Aguascalientes, for example. After that, we have backlash. I mentioned it earlier. So it's usually followed by the word decision. And if there is backlash to a decision, it means that there is a fierce negative response. There is anger and disapproval to a decision. There was fierce backlash from local tourism groups. And then from there, what else could we review? How about phrasal verb cutting off? They cut off the transit route, meaning they removed it. And another one is unrest. The unrest highlights a deeper tension. Unrest is basically like a state of not being calm and panicking or being angry about something. There could be political unrest. If maybe a country is going through an election and maybe somebody has just been elected, there might be a backlash and there could be unrest at the decision. People are not calm, are not happy with the decision. And that's it. Bus disruption in Machu Picchu. And as I said, I'd love to go and visit Machu Picchu at some point in the future. But when? I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's see. Now, how about the final article? And this one is about COP30, which has been celebrated many years in a row, I think, and it is a conference of the parties who agreed to the Paris Accord, the climate change agreement that, unfortunately, since Donald Trump was re-elected as the president of the United States, he withdrew the US from the Paris Agreement. I think he did anyway. He definitely spoke about it, and he doesn't agree that climate change and global warming is happening. But hey, that's Donald Trump. Let's get into the article then. And this is a little bit of a summary of what happened at COP30. So allow me to read. COP30, the 30th annual UN climate meeting, was held in Belém, Brazil, and concluded on the 22nd of November after running past its scheduled deadline. Countries reached a new deal, but many were unhappy with the outcome due to a lack of new, stringent commitments on key issues. The host nation, Brazil, had hoped to secure a clear roadmap for delivering on previous commitments, particularly for the transition away from fossil fuels first agreed upon at COP28. However, the final deal did not strengthen the existing language on moving away from fossil fuels, disappointing many countries and campaigners. Brazil did announce its own non-binding fossil fuel roadmap, but it sits outside the main agreement. On money, the deal included a call for a trebling of funds by 2035 to help the worst affected developing nations adapt to climate change impacts. This is an increase over the $300 billion commitment made at COP29. But the total amount is still less than poorer nations requested, and the split between public and private sources remains unclear. Regarding nature, the agreement did not incorporate Brazil's proposed Tropical Forests Forever facility, a $125 billion fund aimed at preventing forest loss, nor did it include a roadmap for halting deforestation. The conference concluded with many observers stating that the agreements made were likely to shift the dial significantly on climate change, especially given the lack of new measures targeting fossil fuel consumption. So, on the whole, all in all, it seems like this International Climate Summit was, well, a letdown. It was a disappointment because it feels like not a lot of new things were agreed, and countries and leaders are being less ambitious about the environment, about preventing global warming and climate change. I guess that's the way the world is going at the moment. But let's have a look at some of the words and phrases. At the beginning, in the first paragraph, we have running past, which is the same as running over, exceeding, running past its deadline. And a nice adjective, stringent. A stringent commitment is like a strong agreement. An agreement that is difficult to break. Then we have fossil fuels, of course, coal, gas, etc., petrol. And how about, for example, trebling? Trebling is the same as tripling. So to double or to triple, treble. Treble and triple, it's the same. Then what else? At the bottom in the final paragraph, we have halting. So if you say halt, what you are saying is stop. So halting deforestation is stopping deforestation. And I believe that pretty much that's it. That is our final article of the week. And just allow me to recap our 5 articles. We began speaking about Thanksgiving, its origins and how it's celebrated. Then, after that, we looked at the relationship between animals and music, how it can help calm them down. From there, the third article was all about nuclear energy and how expensive it is to produce in the UK. Then we had a look at this bus disruption and controversy in Machu Picchu before finally wrapping it up and finishing this podcast with COP30, this climate summit and meeting, which took place, I believe, last week or the week before. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this second episode of Newsround. And again, if you like this kind of video, let me know in the comments, leave a like, and I'll be sure to make it a permanent feature of my podcast and my YouTube channel. So that's it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.